Hello, hi, I'm Peter Machen, and I'm talking to Jessica Beshir, the director of Faya, Dayi, for Encounters International Documentary Film Festival. Jessica, hello, welcome to Encounters. Jessica, you muted or I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. How about now?
Yes, yes, that's much better. I feel very relieved.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an amazing film, as everybody who's just watched it knows. And I introduced you as a director, but you also filmed it, you wrote it, and you produced the film. And it's your first film, and it's astounding and astoundingly beautiful, and you know, it's a new film in many different ways. I haven't seen a film quite like it before. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of like making the film, Genesis? Where did it come from?
Wow. Thank you for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it. Well, yeah, I had left Ethiopia, for a while, and, going back to reconnect, with my family, my grandmother. I always took like a little camcorder, and, so that's how it started. Basically I was bringing back a lot of messages from my grandmother to my father, who lived in Mexico at the time. And the message was like, when are you gonna come back? So between the back and forths, there was this whole thing brewing of wanting to do something, because there were a lot of changes that I was witnessing from the moment that I left. So yeah, I had to, it took a little while, but I had to sort of, learn as on the job, learn as I go, learn a little bit about cinematography, learn a little bit about, budgeting, producing, and just everything. Yeah.
Of those, because I mean, it seems to me, without knowing you at all, that you're clearly a very creative person. So were the financial aspects and the production aspects a challenge to you or not? Or am I reading you wrong? Are you an accountant?
No, no, I mean, of course, it was incredibly challenging, because I mean, challenging in a way, well, there is no financing, there was never a financing. I started making this film in 2011, and I didn't even apply or get my first grant until 2018.
Okay.
So so for the longest time I was financing it with my own little savings. So but and it was hard, but in retrospect I have to say that that really pushed me to realize and to rely on myself, and understand that also it was super important to really keep the integrity of my vision of what I wanted to do. Because yes, I had some meetings with producers that were very well-intentioned, however did not quite understand what I was trying to do, and had very clear ideas of how they would like to package it, be it as some sort of like a drug drama or I don't know what, which which I'm sure probably would be more commercial, and maybe, but that's not what I intended, obviously. So I had to again realize, okay, I'm going to need to produce this film. I didn't know exactly how to even articulate this film. It was very hard to articulate it, even for grants, and it's only until I finally got some of the pieces together, so I was able to show instead of tell. I say, like, look, this is what I'm trying to do. And so after that, I was able to, I had the post-production grant from the Sundance Institute, as well as Doha and the Jerome Foundation.
Yeah. So it seems to me, and I'm sure it's very easy for me to say this now, like after the film is complete and everything, but that the constraints in some way provided their own liberation. for you to fulfill your creative vision? Because I mean, I was going to ask you how much of that directing, film, written, produced was a choice and how much of it was necessity. But I think one of the reasons for me why the film seems so remarkable is there's a strong sense of it just not being diluted. So looking back, would you been happier to relinquish a little bit of your freedom of expression for more assistance, or are you perfectly happy with how it turned out?
Oh, I'm perfectly
Process.
happy.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy, and I wouldn't want to have it any other way, truthfully, because the thing is, yes, it took a long time, but that long time, I appreciate that long time that it took. Not only because, again, in that time, I was able to learn a lot, but most importantly, within that period of time, there were so many political, social changes happening in the country. With any assistance that I would have done it, in 2012, this would not be that film.
Yeah.
So no, I'm very happy that it took the time that it needed. It really taught me a lot about that independence of vision, and also being my own producer. Yes, I wasn't asking anybody. I had for anything, I had to, because it really doesn't make sense. I'm the one who's going back for years. I mean, there's no reason to, I don't know. I was having a conversation. Literally, I wanted that conversation to be between me, between the people that I was having a relationship with, between the land and all of that. And everything else was something else. I mean, it was just between me and that.
Nice. And I think, I mean, I don't like talking about the idea of purity because I don't think that's what it is. But whatever this thing is that just allowed you to do it, it clearly works to the benefit of the film. So like the film has got a very idiosyncratic take on visuals, on narrative, on information in terms of being a documentary. Um, how much of that vision and the integrity of that vision existed in 2011? How much of it was kind of preconceived, and how much, to what extent is it something that just evolved organically?
Oh, it was a process. The whole thing was a process. It was an evolution, organic evolution from from the vision of it, from the form, from the content, thematic content of the film itself. It's something that it happened over time. Time had to pass by in order for me even to realize how I wanted to, or what exactly about this did I want to transmit. One of the things that really stayed with me throughout is just this incredible sense of impotence and frustration that the youth was feeling. That informed very much how I was going about filming. And then there's a sense of nostalgia even for them that haven't left yet, but know that they might leave. So they are living as if this this is something that they will eventually leave, so there is a sense of dread. There is so much sensorially, there is so much that encompasses the space that I'm filming and the people that I'm filming, that I wanted the whole film to be informed by that, informed, like even just the form, how to edit it, how to put it together. It had to be completely related to the life that we're living there now.
Yeah. And of course, you two have left. I mean, that sounds very, very, very kind of blamey, but which is not what I meant. But just actually, you've left and you're working from somewhere else. How does that feel? In terms of what you were just talking about, and do you think there's value to the distance, like aesthetically and in terms of like a vision?
Perhaps the fact that like I started thinking, okay, maybe I want to capture this, and or I want to make a film, or I want to make something. But truly, I mean, what really stays clear to me, and I've been going back, ever since, is that truly nobody leaves wanting to go. I mean, I don't know anybody that just is just so high of the, a Western or American dream that no, people would love to stay, would love to stay and have that, have opportunities if possible there. I don't really agree very much, because a lot of how I hear is how people are coming to either this country or any other Western country because they're following like that whole idea of a dream and so and so, and I'm like, no, we are running away, we're running away from this, that, the other, most of the time created also by these big countries that we're talking about in the first place. So there is such I don't know, I have a huge sense of indignation, when it really comes to that. So I don't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm also sitting here in Berlin, and this, and I'm from South Africa, and this also resonates with me. And I think part of the.
Because I'm sorry. You're saying that I left too. Well, yes, I did, because it was the same thing. We're running away from, I felt completely uprooted all my life, and look I keep going back. Like in my mind and my heart and my soul, it's almost like I'm here, but I am there.
And also, in that whole narrative for me, there's this idea, of that Europe and the West has this narrative and Africa has this narrative. But for me, they are so part of the same narrative. They're so intermeshed in terms of history and culture and everything, that they are this bizarre kind of one place in a way, especially for those of us who lived in both spaces. But the relationship between Africa and the West, disturbing as it is, like there is a real, the West should just not forget, we know its connection, but the West forgets it so easily, how intimate that relationship with Africa actually is.
Yeah, well, that is all entangled in that, immigration narrative, and all of that, which is really, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, right, I don't know why weirdly after watching your film, I don't know, but I was thinking about the fact that I would be considered an expat, not an immigrant, but I'm an immigrant,
Oh, completely. As a matter of fact, somebody just shared like a whole, sort of like a document that shows how the biggest immigrants literally are not Africans at all, or even South Americans at all. It's all Europeans, that most of them are living elsewhere. And so, exactly, they have emigrated, and how easily is that done?
Exactly. I mean, I recently post-Brexit got my German residency, and it was so easy. And I know that is not a universal experience. But I also want to get back to your film, because I feel like other matters. I mean, the film is located in these other matters, and of course in the world. But I let me shift back. Before this spins in another direction, can you just tell me a little bit about your experience of the film's my brain just died, the film's reception in the world that it's had, and how it's been reviewed? And
I'm very, 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 very moved, very, very grateful for the way it's been received, and for the places where it's been able to screen. It's been amazing, starting from Sundance, and then and just going to various places. Our first European premiere was Vision Durel. That was a beautiful experience. I only wish I was in any of these festivals, because you are but yeah, I think in all, it's been amazing. I don't know what to say. The film has had an incredible reception, and I'm very, very happy, because this will only allow it to continue to go out in the world. Fortunately, it also has got distribution here in North America and Latin America and some territories in Europe. So I'm just so thankful that the film is going to be seen. It's going to have a theatrical release and all. Oh wow, I'm just full of gratitude, truly.
Yeah. I mean, that just, like a commercial release for an African documentary, that alone is sadly like something to be celebrated.
Oh my God, yes, I'm
You know?
celebrating. We're celebrating. Yes.
I mean, I have to ask you this. It's not the sweetest question, but is there a bit of sadness involved in then this is your first film and you're getting the festival circuit, but you're not getting the festival circuit because of COVID? Is that a thing in your life? I mean, I have to ask.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you that given what is happening in the world, this is absolutely nothing. And I truly, truly tell you from the bottom of my heart, I have absolutely no feelings. I am doing perfectly fine. We're healthy. Thank God. I unfortunately, because of COVID has been just been a very hard experience. I lost my father to COVID
I'm very sorry.
in February. So I tell you that not going to festivals, this is what I have, this is what we have.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, to have this and be able to still participate whichever way, or Zoom or this or that. And plus, I don't know, there's so much going on even in our own country, that this is nothing. I don't ever.
Yeah. I apologize if I asked that question too lightly.
Oh no worries about it. No, everybody asks because everybody says, oh my gosh, it'll be amazing to be in person and all of that. And it's true, because the first time I had never seen my film. We edited remote during COVID. I had never seen my film outside of my computer screen until recently. It screened here at the new director's new film in New York. It was such a weird feeling. I couldn't believe it. I was looking at it in the big screen. It was just something that I had never seen it before. So yes, it would have been amazing, but you know what? This is not meant to be for this time. I'm happy to be able to share it with audiences, even if it's on the small screen. Hopefully things are going to get better. And in September, we're opening here in New York theatrically. So I'm very excited about that.
Cool. And look, I mean, one thing that the coronavirus kind of has done is that it's made the online presence of film festivals much stronger. So hopefully now there'll be a major new channel for festivals and for filmmakers. So I think that's kind of great. A few questions are arriving from viewers around the world. I just want to, I'm going to ask you one more question about the actual film. And now I have like written a kind of small essay with questions, and of course, lots of them I'm not going to get to ask. But this one, I think the last question I wrote down, but it really hit me, that last scene in the film. Well, not the last scene, but towards the end, with the in the back of the cinema with the camera, and they're wearing the wheels. For me, there was a suggestion that we can find ecstatic light in cinema as opposed to cat or whatever else we want, that we want to expand our consciousness or diminish our consciousness with. Was that intended, like the religiosity of that scene? Is it something that I'm just reading, or was that your intention?
Well, no, of course, no. That was definitely intended. Like seriously, that's the cinema that I grew up in. So that's where we used to go to watch movies. A lot of the Bollywood movies. So with a bunch of our friends. So that was definitely a spot. The thing is, a lot of the times, and especially once when I was with mommy, the kid that is in the film, we were in this farm, and one of the farmers was, like chewing, after work, and he's like, I can't travel anywhere, from right here, from this spot where I'm at, I'm watching my movies.
Yeah.
And for both of us, it was like, oh my God. But it's almost like it's almost like it's almost like a lot of the youth that are chewing, it's kind of a way, a lot of them will tell you, like, look, if I can't live my life the way I'm intended to, or I would love to, I'm going to chew and trust and believe I'm going to live someday. You know what I mean? I'm just so it's almost like a survival medication, whatever it is to appease a little bit that incredible amount of frustration and angst that you feel at not being able to or being persecuted or everything. So it was very, it's almost like, tying into that creative part of humanity. We medicate one way or another. We get creative. So yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk to you again. I'm going to say that right now, because I have so many questions about the film and so many questions about the things we're talking about now. But there are these questions piling up in the column, and I'm going to ask some of them now. One of them is a question that I also had, is does the film feel like a hybrid between fiction and documentary? Have people responded to the film in this way at all?
Yeah. I mean,
was that intended?
It is well, I mean, people have many ways of calling it, they call it hybrid and so forth. To me, I was taking this opportunity not only to just, document what you see from afar, what you see close, but what is inside, So
yeah,
I feel like, to me, it was very valuable, and it was very important and part of, because I feel like to say, there is a documentary and here is the facts and here is the message or stuff like that. I feel like cinema can do a lot more. So.
Yeah. Exactly. I think of Van Gogh, for example, and I just think that that impressionism and subjectivity can ultimately be a greater source of realism than photorealism. Here's the facts. Yeah, I feel like I was there in a way that I might not in another documentary. Is another way of saying that.
Yeah, I that was very much the intention.
Cool, good. And even if it wasn't good, I've now got a. I'm trying to read a message, but the window got stuck on my screen. I think the more experimental approach. Sorry, I think the more experimental approach lends to that idea of diaspora and movement too, that is better expressed through imagery and emotion than facts or even language. What were some of your approaches to filming and editing in this less conventional way?
Oh, again, everything, for me was very organically conceived in that sense. The way that I was approaching, even filming, was not, I was very conscious of that idea of observational, which I personally don't necessarily love very much. I just feel that this observation could be quite objectifying, in a lot of ways. And I wanted to be able to, or at least, in my own intentionality, have a relationship in terms of not observing, but just responding, having a responding, an emotional response to what was happening, as opposed to an objective observation, which I never understand. I'm not a machine, I am living there. I'm going through with this. So I guess that was one of the approaches. When it comes to the editing, it was also that, it was centering very much, yes, the emotion, and centering very much the indigenous way of life. that was very much, one of the guiding principles. And not only that, I mean, we're talking of a space that there's a Sufi philosophy that leads the space, and the way it moves, and the way everything, and the way it feels, and the way it comes, and the way it goes, and just even the Sufi movements, or just the expressions, or just the way of life. I wanted very much this editing to be inspired and directly affected by that, because that was also very importantly, not just as a style, but that was a way of contextualizing chat to begin with, because it's not just a shrub that people, crazy people go and just like, no, this has a very proper, stories and histories and myths and legends and so forth. It comes from so many places. I felt like that was a way that I found, to truly, ground this subject.
Yeah. So like in a way, the editing was also responsive.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I remember, having conversations with my editor, who both editors are amazing. And we were having conversations, we're talking about like, as if the editing was like a living being, it was a living being that is guided and going through the walled city.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, going that way about it. Just, I'm telling you, I really wanted, and that's why I'm happy that it took forever, but it doesn't really matter, because, these are a lot of the ideas that I wanted to really bring forth in this film, and I was able to do that maybe because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I've got to, I mean, like, interviewing filmmakers and photographers for about 20 years. I've never heard anyone refer to the camera as an instrument of response. And I think that's really wonderful. I think it's really beautiful. It actually changes a lot in my head suddenly. I think that's great.
Yeah, because it's like I'm alive there. I'm responding to what's talking to me. I'm responding to that. I'm not necessarily putting people on or having them do this or that the other, but I'm responding.
Yeah, you're not capturing.
I mean, I'm responding. I'm having a relationship.
Yeah,
that's the way I would see it. Like
I'm sure that's very common. I mean, that's how I take photographs. Thinking about it, actually, like I see something, like I respond, I move in response to it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for asking.
No, I just think about the theoretical things about like this often, and that's never been there in my head. So that makes total sense, and it's great to have in my head now.
Well, I'm sure, most people, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do that, but I guess the way that we are, the way that it's been articulated, or the way that most people articulate it is, sort of like this verite thing or observational thing and stuff like that, which it never really spoke to me, I guess that's.
No, I think it's an issue for lots of people. Because some people have that thing where that's what they do, but like a lot of other people do different things. Another question from anonymous attendee. Sorry, I actually haven't been giving people's names, but in any case, everyone's been an anonymous attendee so far. From Jessica, thank you for sharing your visually stunning work with us in South Africa. I have two questions. What was the reason between your choice of black and white, and what was it like filming in a male-dominated environment?
Well, the black and white, there's something about the legend and the myth, that talks about the darkness of nights, and one of them, the one that took the water of eternal life, becoming daylight. There's such a like dichotomy, in these, I was always imagining that, you know, when I was filming, and yes, and yet there's so much complexity in what is happening, you know, in terms of chat, or in terms of politics, or in terms of everything. So I really felt that also because I was also thinking very much about the inner lives um, of the people that I was filming. And I felt that, you know, this black and white, you know, really allowed me, you know, to really bring that. And also there is so many there, I just would see so much texture and grays and all kinds of grays, you know, throughout. um I thought this was very important because chat chat is a beautiful plant, you know. It's green. I've seen this film in color, you know.
Aha, that's amazing.
Looks beautiful, you know. I mean, you know, all the footage at the beginning was a color. It looks beautiful, but I felt like that wasn't necessarily the story.
Yeah.
Uh, it was something else. So
Cool.
yeah,
Oh,
I
and
did
there
all of
has been, I don't know if you've seen these films, but there, you know, I've seen several very beautifully made, quite poetically made films that straddle documentary and fiction, or that actually just sort of refuse categorization from Africa in the last few years, and they've all been black and white. I'm just wondering if you were aware of this thing that is kind of maybe a minor movement in film.
Yeah, well, you know, I made a short film before
I
I made
watched it.
I
I
did.
watched one of them. You made a few. You made
Okay.
two, three shorts.
Yeah. Well, I made a short film in Ethiopia, which was actually part of this film. You know, that was part of this film, but yet so I figured that, you know, showing was the best way of getting to know people. I didn't know anybody in the I didn't know really anybody. I was just going, shooting, and coming back. So you know, when I put that together, I knew even then, and this was in 2016, you know, 2016, 2017, that this
Yeah.
film was going to be in black and white, you know, well, because you
Okay.
can see, I don't know if you saw that, you know, the black and white one about the hyenas.
Yeah. That's the only one I could find on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was supposed to be part of this film, but then I had to show something in order to present myself, in order to be able to apply to grants, or, you know, this or that, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of black and white, but you know, I just feel like um, we need to do what we need to do the way
Yeah.
it really feels right, you know,
Yeah.
for the film, you know.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I feel, and this may be romanticization and a kind of nostalgia thing, is that like these films do hark back to the early history of film. There's something about them that reminds me of like early 20th century black and white work.
Mm.
And I think also, like at the time, I don't think genres had been invented. I think maybe that's part of it. There was just more freedom to do weird things, you know, to do your own thing.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Oh, and the second question is, you know, filming in a male-dominated
Yeah.
thing. That's an interesting question because, you know, for me, again, I guess because I was probably working alone, I didn't, you know, truly, I was always surrounded by a lot of kids, including mommy, who ended up, you know, in the film, because we've known each other for the past 6 years. It was one of
Yeah.
the kids that would just come with me, you know, every time I'm going around with my camera. It's like, oh, she's back, you know. So, you know, like 6, 7 of them, you know, because they were curious. You know, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? What, you know, they had the time. So it was, I never really felt uh, I didn't have anybody that I was having that relationship with. I was always
Yeah.
with kids,
Yeah.
and I had a beautiful time. Now I don't know how it would be, you know, working with other people. You know, at the end, there in the last 2 trips that I did, um, I worked with also a sound, you know, a sound person that came to help me out from the city. Um, but it was great. We didn't have, you know, those. I don't know how that would be. So let's just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I am sure it's not easy. I've seen it in other productions.
Yeah. Though it does, for me, I mean, like there are certainly places in the world where like it wouldn't be that easy for you to just for you to wander around as a single woman with a camera.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, yeah, no.
that's good.
Yeah, no. For that, I truly, I mean, this is a town where I grew up in,
Yeah.
Still, there are
yeah.
still a lot of people that know my parents, that, there is still a lot of people that I grew up with, so it's not like I'm out of the blue, and
Okay,
and I always felt very safe.
Yeah.
It was never really a problem.
Yeah, cool. No, that's great. That's wonderful. I think we have gone over time already. I'm gonna ask one more question. That is also something that kind of I felt, and that I'd like to ask you a lot more about, but we can't. But it is such an interesting balance between exploring personal and spiritual experiences and the economic world of this phenomenon, which is a whole other narrative that would love to talk about. That. What was your experience exploring these two sides of it?
I thought one could not do without the other, especially in talking about chat, because chat is an economic phenomenon today.
Yeah.
It's always been around. It's been around for a long time. It's been around as an economic force. It's been around for a while, but not as much as it is today. Today, literally, when you go to Harad, everything evolves around chat. It is truly an economic force. I can't even begin to tell you. And the complexity about it is that, of course, everybody says, this is horrible. It makes people waste their time. You're sitting there, you're chilling, you're wasting your time. The youth are not necessarily being self-starters and so forth. And yet at the same time, most of the youth that I know that are employed by the chat business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's it is a complexity. And the thing is, this whole process of the harvest and the work and all of that, I wanted to show that in order to also ground the film in that very fact. I didn't, I could have had somebody talk about it. And I have like many interviews where people, I mean, because I interviewed so many people at the beginning, I'm learning, I want to learn, So, but showing the magnitude of it throughout, even in that huge factory or warehouse, it's that I felt like was enough to ground the film on what this economic force meant, to understand, to see how many people are in it. You understand the economics, more than me, interviewing somebody and telling you some numbers. Statistics was not the thing here. I felt like, showing it was important, very important, and is what actually grounds the film.
Cool. Do you know, just out of interest, how much of it is exported and how much is consumed locally at all? I mean, I'm not asking for fact, but just a sense of things.
I don't know the statistics, but let me tell you, every day, that process that you saw from harvesting to the packaging of it in tiny little bags at night, that is a 24-hour, like a daily process. And a lot of that goes to export, especially the ones that are, packaged. Go to export for Djibouti and Somalia. It's a daily. That's a daily thing. And so is the market at night. That is also a daily thing. And then like the market, it literally, we were there shooting. I mean, I was there shooting around 3 a.m. in the morning, because all this process has to happen at night, because the cars have to drive this into Addis, into wherever it needs to go at night, because otherwise the sun burns the merchandise. So
okay, I was wondering about this spraying.
It's a night process.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm just saying more questions. And is it like, what is the legality around chat?
It's illegal. It's
Okay.
it's very legal. You know,
Legal, completely
it's
legal.
a cash grab.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, so many of the world's other, consumed substances. I read in South Africa once that like the weed industry, and this is like about 20 years ago, was 12 times the size of the sugar industry. And I mean, there are whole economies that exist that are just really kind of ignored, but like are really substantial and can, become cogs of things in some senses.
Yes, everywhere in the world, you have a plant. I have, you have the coca leaf, in
Yeah,
Peru.
I was thinking
You have the peyotes in Mexico, the mushrooms and so forth. I mean, there's always like some sort of plant, everywhere. This is a very indigenous plant, and it could be a very magical plant. It's not about the plant. It's about
yeah.
why are we medicating so much? So, which points to other directions,
Yeah, no, totally. And just in terms of the economics of it, it seems very much, you talk about it being a powerful economic force, but it seems to me that it's also a powerful economic force in the absence of other economic forces that should be.
Oh my God, absolutely. When I say it's an economic force, it's not necessarily to glamorize it at all whatsoever, but simply that is what is moving the economy around there. A lot of the farmers, but not just the farmers, I spoke with the University of Haramaya, which is right there by the lake, by the dead lake. and a lot of the conversation was about, the one, inflation has to do with it. The farmers could no longer sustain the growing of the normal crops, meaning barley or teff or this or that, edibles, and because chat used to be just a side gig, something that you do on the side, but now it has taken over. They can no longer, it's not sustainable for them to do coffee any longer. They don't necessarily have, they can't. They're so it's almost like a survival mode.
This needs to be my last question because we've gone way over time, but that's fine, and this is all lovely. Is it the expansion of chat in any way related to climate change? There were two things in the film that suggested that it might be.
Yeah, well, first of all, coffee, as they say, it used to require a lot of water. Chat also requires a lot of water, And the thing is, as you can see, not just the lake that I show, but there are many lakes in that area, but that used to be the biggest one, the one that we grew up with, when there was a wedding or anything, everybody's at the lake. They had one, fish restaurant. It was an industry. You had, fishermen and all of that is gone, as you can see. And not just with this lake, but all of the lakes in that area are drying up the same. So yes, it has to do with global warming, water as an issue. It's another thing that I wanted to very much, center in this conversation. Yes, because of course, there is also the use of water, for, because they take out water from the lake, in order to, for their crops and all of that. But most importantly is that, yes, there is a global warming, a lot of the lakes around that area are dying. And water as something that signifies a lot of things in this film, I definitely wanted for it to be part of it, because the kid, mommy, he told me that that was a place where they used to rehearse swimming for when they leave, because they all have this idea, they're kids, oh, if the boat capsizes, no, we need to learn how to swim. And there's no place to do that anymore. They can't even do that anymore. I mean, again, it's now, I mean, he was 14 at the time, and when I met him, he was like 10, and now he's 16. And even though it's from a younger boy's perspective, even that perspective tells you a lot about kind of, you know, how they really are feeling and thinking about things, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The more I talk to you, the more I just realize how much is in this film, because we've spoken about so many different things. And to be honest, I think I also have not really scratched the surface of what I'd like to ask you. So it's a remarkably rich film, and I really, everybody who's watching and listening, please tell everybody else to watch this film, because it will make your life better. It will. Thank you so much for talking to me, Jessica, and thank you to Encounters, and thank you for showing the film at Encounters. Thank you to everyone.
Oh, Peter, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. And yes, thank you for Encounters for giving the space for the film to be shown. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, and I hope we chat again in the future.
Yes, Peter, nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Jessica. Bye.
Ciao.